It's the Stranger Nerds. We got myself, Connor Vandermark, with Tommy Grant and Mitchell Lee back in action with us. Mitchell, because you weren't with us for the season premiere from last episode of season 4, give me just a quick rundown or quick thoughts on it before we dive in.
Yeah, of course. The COVID bug bit me last week, but I still had time to watch this episode, and it's very much a season, or not a season beginner, but season starter.
It's a premiere.
It's very much an episode 1 of a season, and that it's kind of getting you ready for the beats that this episode or this season's gonna hit, the new players, and I think from the very beginning, it kind of threw me for a loop because I thought, I'm gonna hate the hell out of this Eddie dude. I'm not gonna like him. I'm just gonna be pissed off. He's gonna annoy me the whole time. And depending on how much you follow with movie news, no one in Stranger Things from the beginning has broken out the way that Joseph Quinn has from Stranger Things. I mean, he's in everything now. You know, Quiet Place, Gladiator. He's gonna be in Fantastic Four.
He's in Gladiator?
And I think he's gonna be in I'll send you the trailer, and when you find out which one he's playing, you'll be on the floor.
Okay.
No, trust me, it looks great.
I'm anticipating that. Okay.
Yes, but I think by the end of the episode, you really come to like not just him as a character, but him as an actor. I really like the new settings for all the characters, especially. I like the fact that they kind of split up the gang, and that they have Lucas kind of going the way of the jocks playing basketball, and the Hellfire Club was really nice to get introduced to. But at the same time, it was also very much a season opener in that not a lot happened. It's just kind of getting you back into the feel of Stranger Things.
It was a stereotypical Duffer Brothers entry.
Yes, but I still liked it, and I think that this season is the season in which Noah Schnapp puts on his schnappiest performances, and by that I mean his worst of the worst.
I was about to ask,
however, he does have some competition. Because the guy that plays fake ass Glenn Powell, the basketball player,
yes.
That guy sucks to high heaven.
But hold on, is that the acting?
And he's also like 32.
Because the character you're meant to hate.
Hold on. Is this the head captain of the team?
The man who can't give any sort of scene without breaking into an inspirational speech.
The guy that couldn't motivate me to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Yeah, him.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that guy. Mason Dye, I believe is his name. Yeah, Mason, don't quit your day job, buddy. Yeah, that was rough to watch. But for the most part, and I won't get into why, I won't get into how, but I think this is a season where Sadie Sink really just says, all right, bitches, I got this. Let me put the team on my back here, and I'm really excited to see where things go. Even though I remember mostly where things go, I'm pumped for it. I can't go too high. I think I went with an 8.12 or something along those lines.
8.6, I think.
Did I go that high?
That must have been the COVID speaking.
Yeah, you were.
Did I really go that high? I went 8.16. Yeah, no, you're just making things up at this point.
Well, again, I probably moved decimal point over or flip the two numbers around.
Yeah, no, 8.16. I can't go too high because it is very much just kind of setting the table rather than putting dishes on the table and getting to sit down and eat. But I still had fun.
No, to me, like I mentioned this to Tommy when we did our long recording, but there was a lot of things. Like honestly, I thought it was a fantastic episode. Like,
oh, okay.
Like with Stranger Things, I've enjoyed most of the story arc, but that was one episode where I really had the itch. Is like I have to see the other one. What's going to happen? And I thought they said like their table setting, as you put it, was very well done. And I think they placed the social conflicts very well with each character coming from the previous season.
That makes a lot of sense to me that you would probably be the one out of the three of us that was the highest on episode 1, because Tommy and I both we've been here before. We know what's coming up, whereas you don't know what
Tommy was higher
you
than
don't
I
know
was.
what the season's
Tommy was
Oh,
high,
really?
Yeah, Tommy was higher. I said
Now,
like a 9.2.
Like, you don't know what the season's
Take it with a
about. You
grain
don't
of
know
salt.
kind of what's at stake.
Because seasons 1 through 3, I have rewatched multiple times since it's come out. Season 4, this is my first rewatch.
Ooh.
So I'm still, a few things are kind of like clicking in my brain as I'm watching, like, oh, I forgot about that scene. Whereas season 1 through 3, like, I knew going into the episode everything that happens.
See, I've only seen season 1 multiple times before we sat down to do this.
Yeah.
So 2, it was like, all right, we got to go back and watch, some good stuff, but mostly stuff that I was like kind of iffy about. Season 3, a lot of stuff that I was like, all right, yeah, I really remember this.
Yep.
And then season 4, this is the first time I've watched it, and they broke the season up into 2 parts. So I remember watching it in real time, and it was very strange in that we had to wait for the last 2 episodes to come out.
Yeah, Connor, be thankful, because that was the most painful
Yeah, not great.
break.
I bet at best it might have been a good little hanger for you guys.
Yeah.
All right, so with that, we're going to dive into the second episode of the season, Vecna's Curse, both directed and written by the Duffer Brothers, which actually, I'm kind of surprised this was a Duffer Brothers direction on this one.
Why is that?
Yeah, why is that, Connor?
To me, compared to the other ones that they have directed, I feel like this one bounced around a lot more.
Okay.
This one felt a lot more disjointed, and I even put in the notes. It was like this one is like, and there was a lot of times it was done very well where they that put notes up, like each set piece that they had was such a large contrast in between each one of them, and we'll go through it when we talk.
Well, that
about
was
it.
kind of the biggest thing that I was talking about last episode with this season. It's like everyone is so spread apart, so it's not like everybody's in Hawkins anymore. Like, you have very, very drastically different set pieces and kind of sets for each character arc. So it's you feel the bouncing around a lot more in the season because of that.
But the other thing too is like, isn't just that, but the tonal change of each set piece really was like, destroying is not the right word because it was done well, but at the same time I thought it would be something I expected something differently from the Duffer Brothers and how they done it. So this was definitely a surprise seeing them direct this one.
I agree with you, and once we get into some of the specific kind of like settings and plot points of this episode, I can kind of dig into which ones I thought fit and which ones I'm like, this is a good time to go and, take a piss break or, something, because I just didn't care about what was going on. And I don't think it's going to be too terribly hard to guess, but at the same time, I'm with you on that. There are certain subplots that I was all the way invested in, and others that I know they're important, but I just don't really care too much at the moment.
No, I can.
Would
I
a
can
certain
understand that.
actor be in most of those scenes?
Okay. There's another character that I absolutely hate in this season that I will get to later.
All right.
We got 2 on the board right now. There is a third.
Oh man, I be anticipating this. So let's dive right in.
Yeah.
We're again, like we did last episode, we are going to go with each of the different story arcs that we're seeing here, and we're going to start off with the story arc that we see in our very first title scene, as they want to call it. So we have wonderful. Okay, you put it here, Tommy. Detective Byers and the Bald Eagle reunite. So we get the start the season episode off. We get the flashback of the season 3 finale when we see Hopper actually able to jump onto a little platform during the destruction of the key, which opened up the portal. But he was unfortunately picked up by Soviet soldiers and then tortured. Bluntly, I thought that uh, the gas mask suffocation was real
Oh, that
brutal.
was brutal.
Like great like filming of that one, but I was like, ooh, I never thought about that one. Oh shit.
Because initially, like when they put the mask on, you think they're gonna like gas him or something, and then when they just start cutting off the air, you're like, oh, that's a dark fucking twist.
Mm-hmm. And then we find out that he is sentenced by one of the Russian officers to as he put it, a place just like hell, which is the Gulag camp in pronunciation correctly, Kamchatka.
Yeah, put a little Russian flair on there, and you got it.
Kamchatka. I usually am pretty good with Russian names of stuff, but this one is catching me off guard. No, I'm
Yeah,
used to all the Russian hockey players and stuff, but that one is a real tongue twister. I'm looking up the phonetics now. I tried this earlier.
I just see rum chata whenever I read it.
Rumchata.
The inner alcoholic in me spoke out.
Kamchatka.
Yeah, Kamchatka. That makes much more sense. That makes much more sense to my brain. So, it's a far northeast region of Russia that is pretty close to Alaska. And this is a good question posed by you in the show doc here, Tom, is how the hell the Russians managed to get him out of Starcourt without the military getting him? Or
It
getting them, that
bothers
is.
me because they go through the effort of showing how Hopper escaped death, which I thought was nice because a lot of times you just have the magic. Oh, they survived, but you have no backstory as to how. They at least show you this, but then all of a sudden it's like, well, at the same time, you would have had this whole base been stormed by U.S. soldiers with Dr. Owens. Where the fuck did they go? How did they escape? Because
So,
as far
I'm
as we know, there's only one or two ways out, and they were both covered by U.S.
Well, the Starcourt one mall I can see is because I can definitely see them having multiple exits out of this place. Like we already saw the one at the house where we don't know that was covered or not either. Where uh, fight scene number 2 happened with Igor was his name. I forget the Terminator dude.
Yeah.
And Hopper. So we know there's an exit there, and I don't think we saw any clips of that area being swarmed. So I can definitely see them being extra escape routes from Starcourt Mall. Out to the country and the border, that I'm surprised about, especially taking a prisoner with them. If
Yeah.
you're going the land route, no, or either going by sea somewhere or going through Canada to get to Alaska, like that's 2 border crossings you have to deal with.
Yeah.
So who knows?
That's just me nitpicking, but that always bothers me when it's just like how the hell does that happen?
No, I can understand that.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm getting.
Fun fact: I've never seen that movie.
Oh, shut your mouth.
It's not as bad as everyone says it is, but it's also not good.
It's visually nice. Acting wise and story wise, it's crap.
I don't think it's worth my time.
But
That's fair.
It's still worth watching. I enjoy watching it regardless.
Alrighty,
I would agree with that.
back on track. So Murray goes to California after we see the scene of the Mike arriving, which I thought was a very nice, like, oh, they're on the same plane. They didn't interact with each other. I thought that was very funny.
I feel like that would have been a great scene too because Murray probably been really pissed off to see Mike on the plane. Like, oh, great, like you again.
Yeah, exactly. But they nothing about like Mike and Murray didn't really have much interaction overall, so like it'd be kind of weird having that. I thought it would be like a nice little happenstance, like, oh, what you're doing here. But tells the cab driver to go chop chop on his way to their Joyce's house. Yeah, come on, this is life or death here, and the guy puts the extra toll onto that because no, Murray's being a jerk. That was a very nice touch. And then we actually get the full reading of let's be real, a ransom note for Hopper. Um, and Hop is very much perceived to be alive, at least to Joyce's point of view. And Murray being very skeptical and think, oh, this could also be a honeypot for you to get you captured because who knows
Yep.
what Hop said already. And while Murray has some faith in Hopper, in this he has less faith in the KGB being nice to him, which is honestly completely fair. But the Enzo part, I think that really, if that Enzo part was not in that ransom letter, I don't think that Joyce would have jumped to it. So it was a nice little touch on that.
Yeah. I do like the acting in this scene too, especially on Murray's part, because in the past like, we've always seen very crazy, psychotic, paranoid Murray, and we still get a little bit in this scene, but we get more compassionate Murray coming out when he sees the desperation in Joyce's face. Like he wants to keep arguing with her, but at the same time he wants her to be right because he wants Hopper to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
So you see that little switch in his face when he's like, you know what, let's do this. Like, fuck it. Why not?
But we're doing it my way.
Yeah.
And he brings out his pretty much a.
Were you expecting that to come out of his suitcase?
Oh yes, very much so. Old timey VPN. Any sponsors out there, we're listening. Yeah. So again we get the his wonderful. I don't even know what the hell they call it. Those things back in the day. I'll just call it a VPN for our time's sake.
Yeah.
And so we get the phone call to this number that was put on the ransom note, and then we get a Russian gentleman who answers it, who goes by the name Enzo, and Enzo is requesting nicely $40,000 and delivered to Yuri's Fish and Fry in Nome, Alaska, in 2 days if you want to trade Hopper for the money. Which, this is again, deal with Russians, like this is sketchy as hell, and yep. No, I don't blame Murray to not believe this guy, and smart that they actually decided to record the call too, because
the 80s version of the Nigerian Prince.
Yes, very much. Honestly, that's probably the Nigerian Prince is probably the 80s version. Let's be real. And then another thing that was crucial is Murray trying to ask for sign of life of Hopper, proof of life, as a better phrase of term. And he states that Hopper stuck while someone's yelling at him in Russian, a lady, to get off the phone. And it was, I knew once the lady was yelling, I was like, oh, she's going to give some information away. And yeah, so they find out that they call the gentleman on the phone what we Americans sometimes tell to our cops, that they're pigs, trash in that aspect, and they kind of deduce that Enzo could be a prison guard, and that could be their tie to Hopper, and that's maybe how Hopper's bribing. Hopper's a bribe going on, which is very much Hopper's MO when it comes to these things. And then then we see the very last scene when of Hopper, where Enzo's the one who locked him up to get comfortable here, American, and that's the last time we see in this episode of the three of them. Thoughts on this storyline?
This might be the one thing that has me the most interested, just because I feel like I just think that Murray is a really interesting character. Whenever you get Murray involved, that means that something fun is going on, something with a conspiracy, or just something
underlying with the conspiracy to the plot.
Yeah, and so I think that the trio of Hopper, Joyce, and Murray is a good one. Even if Hopper isn't necessarily there with them, he's definitely involved in what's going on. I'm never going to turn down a good subplot with the three of them.
And also, Murray is invested in this because in the past 2 seasons, everyone's gone to Murray. This is the first time you've seen Murray actually travel to somebody because he wants to help.
True.
That's a good point.
He has skin in the game now, and especially after what he has seen from last season, now he knows. Oh, there's some real shit going on here.
Yeah. Now, Connor,
Yes.
I want to know your opinion as to what you think's going on. I know you've seen bits and pieces of season 4, but
Honestly,
going
now
off,
now as we're
going
going
off
through this, I think I've only seen the next episode, of episode
okay.
3,
So going
and
off of the season finale where we see the Demigorgon, and obviously we know Hopper's alive and in Russia now. What do you think this plot line is going towards? I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
so to start out, to be fair, that when we first saw the intro piece, when Hopper jumped, I was like, did he jump into the freaking portal? Because that was my first thought, and I was like, okay, darn, okay, they didn't pull that on us. Um,
But honestly, that would at least made more sense because we knew Russia was trying to do it on their end, so he could have just fucking portal hop to Russia.
so we never really got clear information what the Russians' motives were. So that's kind of where I'm seeing this.
They're Russians. They don't need to be motivated by anything but vodka and pride in their country.
Well, it's more so the fact that, like, no, other than Cold War shenanigans that are happening during this time period, that we're like, there obviously someone tipped them off about what happened at Hawkins, because it wasn't really a huge national incident. So someone at least leaked it to them, and they see some importance here, where they see something valuable, like resources, something that they can exploit. Which, that thinking militarily, that like that's something that is lines up with that kind of thinking. Isn't more of like a national achievement when it comes to like the moon landing or something of that nature. So I'm intrigued what direction they go with it, but I'm definitely more curious on like how they get the Demigorgon back. Did
Yeah.
they take it from the original portal? Did they smuggle it out? Like, we have no knowledge of what's going on.
Well, to go back to season 3, Alexei explained this a little bit when he was talking to Murray, and how the Russians were doing the same thing that Hawkins was doing, except they were unsuccessful because I guess they didn't have the right resources to do it or the right location. Because Alexei was the one that mentioned, he said location matters, and that's
Yes.
why they were trying to get a Hawkins. So they had
Well,
been trying to access the Upside Down. We just don't know to what extent they were successful in or not.
but the thing is, like, somehow, some way, the information that was happening at Hawkins was leaked. Like, there was a mole somewhere out there, and again, like, the Americans did the same exact thing. Like, they were messing with things that they didn't understand. And
Yep.
my question is that, what are the Russians' motives different than the Americans' motive? I mean, like, and I think it would be a nice foil to this is, um, we will get to this a little bit later, but I think it's a good time to bring up now, is that we already have military presence in Hawkins.
Yep.
Where they are currently investigating the body of Chrissy, who was our first victim that we saw. So I think that we're going to get a nice foil in between how the government's going to handle what's the current situation with Vecna and Russians' involvement in this whole situation as well.
Yeah.
Anything else before we move on to the California crew?
Let's head on over.
All right. To Bali we go. So, Mike arrives in Cali on his plans, greeted by Elle, where Mike gave a nice bouquet of random flowers that he found in Hawkins on the way to her, which I thought was cute. And Elle is super excited to see Mike and recommends the getting burritos in the breakfast. And Will was like, "You sure about that? Like, come on now." And Will is still being the awkward third wheel, which he admits later on, and he's clinging to his secret painting, which, like, the fact that he brought it with him and not shown Mike immediately really gets me curious. Like, it's just like this lingering kind of thread that they're dangling thread that they're trying to lead us to. Like, oh, what's there? What's there? And I'm so curious of like how if obviously we had tied of what's happening, but like, is he having visions again? Is he having some weird connection to, I assume, what we name now the villain Vecna? And it's definitely I'm intrigued what that's going to, or is it some nice sentimental piece that he's just really embarrassed by, which I doubt. But
Well, I'm
I
gonna keep
will
my mouth
just
shut.
say that everything involving this character was incredibly predictable, bad, poorly written, poorly acted, and this isn't just reduced to this particular episode. But also everything involving this subplot. This is my go take a piss subplot. Because character number 3 that I cannot stand and do not like
Let me get.
is Argyle.
Come on.
I just don't. I hate everything about this character. I don't like watching him. He's
I
just
mean,
there to be
I'm not surprised
like,
you don't
huh,
like him
like
because you're not a big goofy comedy kind of person. Like you would never watch movies like Cheech and Chong or Fast Times at Ridgemont High or anything like that. Like that's not up your ball.
I don't smoke weed, and I
You don't
think
have to
that,
smoke weed to appreciate the comedy behind it.
but it helps.
Sure.
I think that most people that like that kind of stuff might have like an
All right.
affinity for
I'm
that kind of
I'm
thing,
gonna
and I don't look
all right.
down on it. It's just not something I do.
I'm gonna name one early 2000s comedy movie. I want you to tell me if you've seen it and if you liked it. Because I'm gonna guess
Okay.
you haven't and you don't. Pineapple
Okay,
Express.
what is it? I have seen it.
What are your thoughts?
I don't like it.
I knew it. Okay.
I don't think it's funny. I think it's stupid. But weirdly enough, I like a lot of other Seth Rogen movies. So
yeah,
Oh.
I'm on your side of here, Mitchell, on this one. I
Hey.
am not.
Uh,
But also like
fuck you. No.
he's an
But, like,
acquired taste, but I appreciate his character.
I think he just kind of puts it on a little too much. Like this.
Yes.
Like the scene with the when they're hitting golf balls. Like, if you
All right, I will give you that.
tone
that
it
was a
back
little much.
25 like if he tones it back 25%, we cool.
And I think that's directing more than acting.
Yeah.
That's how the character was instructed to be.
Yeah.
I'm willing to give him benefit of the doubt that I do not extend to Noah Schnapp.
Again, with Noah Schnapp, we already have previous evidence.
Correct.
Yeah, so but like he seems I can see as a character what he's supposed to be and he resembles, and I thought it was fine the first season. This one was like I thought the bit with the t-shirt was very funny. Like that was a good bit. Seeing what brand Mike had is like, oh, it's a knockoff. And like it's just like him sticking like a sore thumb like that. I thought he's great at that, but the interactions with Jonathan is more of like
But you
too
also
much.
know, like, aside from the drugs, like he's got bad social skills because he's a loner. Like he even told like that comment he made with Jonathan, like, "Who am I going to tell? You're my only friend." Like, he's a loner.
That it kind of goes into my other thing is I think Jonathan's gotten a lot less interesting as well.
Oh yeah,
That the only thing that makes Jonathan interesting is his relationship to Nancy, which is why he's always either talking about it or in a scene with Nancy.
Yeah, that's
his,
very
his
true.
character has no purpose at this point.
Correct.
But
Kill him off. Do it now.
honestly, but like in another aspect of it too, like he himself actually like self realizes that too. Where like he talks about the so there's in this golf scene where that we're mentioning is no Jonathan's like, yeah, I want like his whole thing is Nancy and family. That's his two main things.
Yep.
And he was like, I want like his own wants is to stay in California with his family. And he doesn't want to ruin Nancy's dreams of because Nancy would go to California with him. And that is he kind of realizes like, yeah, like this is like his own motives are also tied to Nancy in this aspect, and he kind of has his own self realization about that. I hope that gets better because I definitely can see something that can be flushed out there, but who knows? Because I don't think it'd be as important as a plot line, but we shall see. Um, and then let's talk about the wonderful three-headed monster that is Mike, L, and Will. So,
Uh,
like, am I wrong? Like,
no, you're not. I just love your description of it. You're starting to sound like Mitchell.
no, no,
I thought that Mike was interesting. I think that
no.
it's
I thought it
nice,
was
at least.
I thought it was good. Like, I didn't even cut you off. Like, it was just more so like,
Well,
as
the one
in
question
the
I have is what the fuck happened between Mike and Will? Because Will points out in this episode, like how like he used to be, they used to be best friends, but now like Mike never talks to him, and even Mike, like when they first met, like off the airport, he was like, oh whatever, like shrugged him off, like what the fuck happened?
I can okay. I will say
Teenage angst
I don't
and
know.
I
the
would
whole
Because like
I've got my girlfriend
I
here
mean maybe
and
I'm
I'm
just used
trying
to
to
my
spend
friend
time with
group because
her.
like I mean you and me, Mitchell, we went years without talking because obviously.
Man, after you stabbed my cat, I couldn't talk to you for enough. It,
But like we,
it was just
we
a
grew
move
apart, like
thing.
literally grew apart because you
Well, yeah, I
moved.
moved states
But
away.
like years later, we just kind of picked up like that. Like no, there was no
Yeah,
weird awkwardness. And like Connor, like,
yeah.
you and I will go a while without seeing each other, and we meet up again. It's like nothing changed. So seeing that, like
But
knowing
here's
that
the
kind of
thing,
reaction, but then going
Tommy.
to Mike and Will and have it be like, oh, like why are you here? Like
Tommy, you're an old man. You're 30.
I know.
All right? You're talking about
Don't remind
teenagers.
me.
We're talking about teenagers here. Do you remember when you were a teenager? How many smooth things did you do at 15, 16, whatever the hell? You didn't. Okay? Because they have no idea what they're doing. Not a clue.
and
So every interaction's going to be a little bit more heightened than it needs to be because they're stupid teenagers.
I will say this though, because this is something where I personally have an issue with is no, I'll admit Tommy is someone who will no will reach out to people just on out of the blue, like, and that's something that I've never really been good with. And Mike makes the comment to Will where it's like, dude, you can reach out as well, but like I'm kind of in the boat here with Will on the aspect of, well, no, we talked a few times, but like, no, if you're not going to put the energy out to contact me, then why should I care about it? And then that if you say that I'm one of your best friends, then why don't you put in the energy that shows that? Yeah, I know you're dating Elle and all, but like, just no, give me a zup. Like, no, hit me up a little bit. Like, I don't blame Wheel on that aspect there. Um,
I guess it's just who I've grown up around. Cause like I've known so many people, like especially like my parents and like my grandparents are like they're like, oh, like talking about like a good friend of theirs from like years ago. I'm like, oh, like have you ever talked to them? Oh no, I haven't. Like, would you ever reach out? No, well, I haven't heard from them. I'm like, well, why don't you fucking reach out? Like, just
yeah.
pick up the phone and text them, email them, do something.
No, that's the thing. Like, it's just like it's more of like I don't want to disturb you. Like, but in a situation like this, though, like when they are like, no friends, and especially at this age, no, that's more of like just putting the energy out, and that's something me personally have
I
been
guess
working
it's just
on.
because I'm a social butterfly. I don't know.
You were more of an extrovert, and while me, I'm more of an introvert. So like that definitely balances out that way. Or like no,
I'm some sort of weird halvesy.
You just need someone to say sports.
I just need I need
movies.
an in, right? Yeah. I need an in.
No, yeah,
At least I did. Now I just like to be at home.
no,
That's because you reach full adulthood.
I'm with you on that one, Mitchell. Though I'm definitely with you on
Yeah.
that one. Hey, hockey gets me that itch for me. Um, so, so to the three-headed monster, that is the three,
Ah.
Elle, Mike, and Will. So they go to the roller rink, and this is one of those scenes where I have issues watching because I can feel the impending doom that's going to happen to Elle. Like, I feel so bad for that girl. No, especially how all the
I
shit
don't.
all the shit she's gone through. I'm like, oh, like I know she definitely is an outcast in her school, and I know she's trying to put on the front, but like that girl has trauma with capital T, and
I mean, I feel bad, but at the same time, I'm also like, brain cells, use them, please. Because, like, what's her face? Blonde McAssface or whatever the hell her name is.
Angela.
I forget her name.
Show
Angela.
notes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at them. I just got lost. But a blonde McAssface fits a little bit better when it comes to this particular character because she's like, stay right here. Don't go anywhere. I'd be like, no.
so here's the thing.
I'm not going to do that. I'm going to move.
So
I would agree with you on that one, but
I don't trust you.
Hold on. I am going to counter argument that though, because we had this conversation last week, Tommy, where so one of the big things that I did kind of hit on is the social conflicts that we're seeing in all the different plot lines we have, and how
we had some deep conversations last week, Mitchell,
and how it like naturally drove a lot of these plot lines. And the one thing with Elle, which I thought that the directors did a really good job about, is having that understanding where Elle is in a situation where she is literally a fish out of water. Because all she's known is the party. That's it. And they've all been nice to her. They've all been supportive of her. No, she didn't go to middle school when she was in Hawkins. She had no other way to understand how to socialize. And let's be real.
She was raised in a psych ward and then Hopper's cabin.
Exactly.
She's not going to get many social skills.
And let's be real. She is weird. We all know this. They got the party knows it, but the party itself is weird itself. They grew up understanding how to fit their, I'm just going to put it this way, their role in society when it comes to the cliques and how to live with it. Will they seen last episode where Elle kind of got ripped on when doing her project over Hopper. No, Will came out of that and said, like, hey, that wasn't too bad. Like, no, that could have been much worse. And Elle is breaking down over it because Elle, to her, this is the worst thing that ever happened to her. And this is happening for the very first time where she's not having any support from any of her peers. Because her peers see her as weird, which she doesn't want to be. And Will, who has been through this, as we making fun of Noah Shap this whole time, he's very good at being the odd man out within this party group. And he's well aware, with him being called a goddamn zombie, that he knows what it's like to be that outcast. And he's trying to comfort her in the way he knows is just accepting it. And Elle's not accepting it at all. She wants to be in the in group. So those red flags that should be going through her mind are just being ignored because of the fact that she wants to feel that attention, that popularity that she sees all these other normal girls have.
All right, I'll give you a B on that one.
Thank you. Hey, that's
like I think that was well thought out.
Like I could go deeper, but like again, this is off the cuff.
You want to go deeper? Listen to last week's episode, Mitchell.
It was a long one. It was a real long one. Me and Tommy were real in depth. But yeah, that's how I see that with her. And no, I think that like with her losing her powers too, that was their own real way to, I don't know, I think the being an equal playing field of like, yo, fuck you. Like I kind of say like, oh, I have my own thing going on here. And now she doesn't have that. The one thing that made her feel special, she doesn't have anymore. So she's trying to find that hole somewhere else. So yeah, we get the scene where she's got into the middle of the dance floor, and again, I feel so bad for her because she's literally the focus is on her in the bad way. And what she gets spilled on, was someone's drink or something, a Coke?
It looked like chocolate, almost like a chocolate.
I thought it was like a milkshake or something.
Yeah, and then she goes and hides in the roller rink, And Will, and that's when Will and Mike have their little talk, like no, no, let's go find her. And Will's like, like, why don't you talk to me and all that bullshit. Um,
And also, Will kind of calls Mike at him like she's been lying to you this whole time, and Mike refuses to believe that Elle would lie to him. And she's like, she doesn't fit in here. Like she's getting bullied all the time. And then we get a pan over to the cringiest bullying we've ever seen on TV. Just a bunch of girls roller skating around a girl, holding their arms out, going loser. Like, it was the cringiest shit.
but for real, but
Yeah, it was the type of thing that made me just like you see a lot in like 80s or
Yes.
Stephen King type bullies, you know, where it's just like, or like in Shazam, like the first Shazam movie, they hit the disabled kid with a car, and it's like, who the hell are these people that are doing this? Like, this is awful.
But a fun fact, speaking of Stephen King, this whole kind of story arc with Eleven and Angela is supposed to mirror the storyline for Carrie, which, if you guys haven't seen, it's basically a girl with telekinetic powers that gets bullied throughout school because she was raised at home, like homeschooled for a while, you know, very antisocial, doesn't know how to fit in, and the bullies at this dance spill pig's blood on her, and she loses control of her powers and basically kills everybody.
Oh shit!
So, not to the extreme,
I've seen
of what we
the
saw in
remake.
Stranger Things, but it was very influenced by Carrie. And obviously, we see what happens with Eleven shortly after the milkshake incident, where we see Eleven kind of gain her confidence back, and the tone in her voice changed completely.
You, Angela!
Be like, oh, she's back.
Boom! Oh man, she was real mad.
Because like she had that like babyish voice this entire time, and it's like all of a sudden it's just that snap to that deep like pissed off sound. You're like, all right, 11 is back. No more Jane. 11 is taken over.
Jane is dead. Kill her.
Honestly, that was a great end scene though. Like that was something where I was like, to her is like, screw this. I want to like she wanted to use her powers, and everybody thought she was weird what she tried to do. She was like, all right, I can't use my powers anymore. My own fist would do, or skate blade.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was very, very funny. And then you have a comment here, and
yeah, I meant to tell you after we recorded last week, because that whole time you were like, I don't think that was 11. I think that was another kid. I wanted to say something, but I was like, he'll find out next episode.
Yeah, that was I was like, I guess.
And Mitchell's confusion. That scene from the first episode where we see all the there's that lone kid.
I just didn't remember that it did clarify that it was 11.
They didn't verbally say it, but like it was it was supposed to be
imply with the
it was supposed to be implied
with the flashback at the end after her bashing this woman's head in. So I'm intrigued if what they're gonna go with that. No, I'm assuming she's gonna get her powers back sooner or later. Because that'd be wild if she didn't, honestly. I don't know. I'm intrigued. Honestly, the point of the story arc now is I'm intrigued is because obviously they won't call the cops on her. No, they're going to probably attempt to bring her up for assault, and meanwhile Joyce is like, I'm going to go to Alaska in 2 days. so the one parent.
Another thing that I wanted to bring up last episode too, but something with this season that's very unique with having everybody split up is you now have a telekinetic threat and upside down threat in both Hawkins and in Russia against two parts of our party, and the only two people that are connected to it, Will and 11, are completely outside of the loop in fucking California.
That's very true.
Threats. So it's like it's that first time where their only detection system and their weapon against it are gone.
Yeah. That's a good point. So we were going to tie in anything else before we go to the next block, which is a quick one.
Nope, that's kind of it. I mean, as we know, this is Mitchell's potty break scene, so I'm sure he has not much else to say on it.
Well, the next one's kind of in the same boat because we got fake ass Glenn Powell to talk about.
Well, let's get to Glenn Powell.
So, we get the. I'm going to touch on real quick because we haven't really mentioned it because we do get the scene of Max seeing. Oh, someone would say seeing, but Max waking up and seeing the cops outside and getting a glimpse of the dead body of Chrissy, and she was like, "The fuck, like this is wild," and she goes and see him, but like the cops are investigating. We find out that the new sheriff or police chief is the crap. What's his name again? I don't see it on the show doc. Not on here. It's the guy that was the one assistant previous to Hopper. And
Sullivan?
that sounds about right, but I wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't remember his name.
Oh shit! That distracted my. Oh, wow, I completely missed out on that watch just now. So, they're investigating. Of course, our wonderful Eddie is the lead suspect here, and of course, because Chrissy is the boyfriend of the basketball captain, or girlfriend of the basketball captain. So they go interview him, which Lucas is currently at Benny's, which is the old restaurant that we haven't seen since season 1, and that did not track with me. That was that same restaurant. I didn't pay that much mind to the
I
location.
didn't either.
I mean, obviously,
they mention it,
and it got shut down.
They mentioned it hasn't been occupied for a few years.
Yeah.
And so they kind of made their own hangout spot, and like the cops were like, "Oh, why are you drinking and stuff?" And Lucas is hungover from the last night's party with the basketball team, so they just won the championship. And no, we get this situation where Jason kind of picks up that Chrissy is dead. This is a dead student, and Eddie is the one who's supposed to be the suspect. And dude goes full rage mode, and and Lucas, who is currently there, who knows Eddie because he's obviously played D&D with him. As someone who's trying to live this double life in between his sports friends and his D&D friends, he was like, "Oh no, no, the Hellfire Club's not a cult. Like it's just some guys playing D&D. But these guys have already been eating up to the media when it comes to satanic panic of like, oh, I heard it can lead down astray, and who knows, this guy could be sacrificing, and like,
it's fucking wild how crazy that stuff got back in those days.
Yeah. They went to
still is
jumping to conclusions very quickly.
Dude, it still is in certain parts of America. Like,
yeah, that is fair.
Like, even again, I mentioned this before. There's been even recent lawsuits on stuff where like, oh, no, like, I keep bringing it back up. I've been reading it where parents are afraid to play basic trading card games in high school because of the fact that they still think that there's demonic influences within the trading card game. Like it's sad, but like sometimes the best way to control people is through fear. So Jason, the basketball captain, goes out. I thought him going out alone to scream, I thought that was at least a good director touch because like it kind of like shows like he wants to hide that emotion in front of everybody else because he wants to stay strong and like keep that image in front of everybody.
Yet everybody's still gonna hear him.
Probably. But yeah, it's definitely Lucas is now already is put in between a rock and a hard place already of like, oh, this is not going. This is probably going to end bad. And pretty much we have shit. Gaston for Beauty and the Beast. He's going to rise up the mob and take down the beast that is Eddie.
I like the tie-in.
Because let's be real, like very much Gaston vibes with this guy. And then anything on that before we get to the second half of this?
Nope, let's dive on in.
And then we have the military. I mentioned before the military has shown up on this, and they are digging in. Well, they are overhearing the tapes, and obviously, I'm kind of curious how much the current police chief knows, because he's calling someone to get someone down here. Is he calling the contact from the military? Is he calling a contact that he's personal friends with? Because obviously he's being recorded, so who knows who sent him? So
I personally believe it was just someone personal that he was calling, because I don't think Hopper had filled them in on anything in terms of Owens, because that was a very secret classified relationship they had.
Yeah.
But
also I can see it's like him being the authority power, give him a quick PowerPoint of like, hey, weird shit happened, call this number.
And I didn't look into it too much, but my assumption was Frank is the coroner, because they would have had someone come down, like the forensic examiner, to come down and look at the body to see what was done, because obviously the eyes were gouged out, the body was basically twisted and contorted. So my assumption is either the coroner or a forensic examiner was called to come down.
Yes. And we would touch that into let's dive into it now. Let's talk about Nancy, because I think that ties in nicely.
Okay.
So
I did like this one. I'll just get that out of the way. I find Nancy and her stupid little friend that
Fred Benson.
Yeah, stupid Fred. I just liked their dynamic, and will not be experiencing
Fred
it for
has
too
a
much
checkered
longer.
past, as we find out.
So
yeah, man.
You wouldn't expect that from little Fred Benson.
So
no,
I've come to learn quickly that the death flags come up real quickly in this season.
Yeah.
Because you missed it last week, Mitchell. But like, I was like so ready to find out what the deal was with Chrissy, and then dead. I was like, oh,
this show will do that to you.
Yep. But this is like,
season 4 takes it to a new extreme for the Duffer Brothers. I mean, they get dark. Which is why I like season 4 the most, because it's very Nightmare on Elm Street-esque. And that is definitely one of my favorite horror movies. So I
say that as having never seen Nightmare on Elm Street.
Well, that will change.
Yes, but I know the beats. I know the story. I've seen the awful remake. But yeah, this hits those vibes so incredibly well, and I think that that grandfather clock sound is one that you just come to dread.
Yes.
Oh, so good. And like the fact that like once you hear him, like, oh, like obviously the first interaction that he has, like the first hallucination, I guess you can say. But once you hear the clock, like, he's done. It's coming, man. It's like
that's your ass.
That's like the build of suspense of it. Because like with Fred, I'm like, oh, I think he's just gonna be Nancy's annoying little fly that she has to keep swatting off because she's still dating Jonathan, quote unquote. And the fact that we get to see like so quick, was like, oh, let's take a field trip over to the trailer park, and we get the scene where, again, he hallucinates this. Hold on, I remember correctly. Hallucination not the word I liked last episode. What was the one I was thinking of, Tommy? It was more of a shit. Now I'm mad at myself that I didn't write this down.
It's not more of a shit, I promise.
I know.
Yeah, I'm blanking on what you had said last week.
Because the reason why I don't like hallucination is because by the hallucination, it's still happening in front of you, and what's going on, and that's what's happening. It's like very much internalized, where imagery is not even the right word either. The last week's show doc probably has it. I'll dig it up later. But the fact that he's having these really vivid scenes in his mind, and in reality, it's like, the fuck you doing? Like,
Illusion.
illusion. Yes, illusion. That's the word I was looking for. Because we're having these illusions that he's getting, and that they're entranced in. And once you saw that, I'm like, oh, that's the death flag. What's gonna happen to you, bud? And yeah, him saying like who he murdered someone, the scar on his face, like, I was originally thinking that, no, oh, this is something that is everybody's tied to the incident with the fire, but this seems like it's just something different, where it's just like, oh, maybe Vecna's prying on any guilt that this person has, or insecurities that they might have, and then exploiting it. So, because I'm currently trying to find the connection between Chrissy and Fred, and the one thing I can really see with my wonderful Always Sunny with Charlie with the red strings, Pepe Sylvia looking through. I'm trying to make my own points. Like, okay, what's connecting these two together with each other?
I will say without spoiling anything, there is a slight hint that they kind of allude to in the first episode as to how things are connected.
Well,
If you want to give it a rewatch
no,
and see if you pick up on anything new.
I'm not gonna give it a rewatch. I'm just letting it roll. But like, again, once I've probably seen the next few, like, I probably will.
Yeah.
Again,
You'll kick yourself when you see it.
The kids will pick it up.
Yeah.
I've honestly probably mentioned it before, because I went to pretty deep about Chrissy. Mitchell had probably a good 20-minute spiel about Chrissy.
Oh wow!
I would
I'll
like
check that out.
I went a real like psychological deep dive on her. It was fun. So Nancy, being the journalist that she is, she's digging in, and being the smart person, knowing how the newspaper works in Hawkins. She goes to Eddie's uncle Wayne, and she's like, "Hey, I'm not trying to twist your words. I want to know what you want to hear. What you hear." And it's like, I don't think Eddie did it. And talks about this guy who killed his family called Victor Creel, and the manner that that Chrissy died was very similar to how Creel did it, where they gouged his own family's eyeballs out, which was like, that's real, deep.
And that's a very specific detail.
Yeah, that's something like, the FBI definitely has notes like, oh, eye gouging. Let's see who's done this. Like, there are notes on that. So yeah, so we find out he's institutionalized at Penhurst Asylum. We don't know if he's still alive or not. The assumption that he is. And this is an actual haunted asylum in Pennsylvania, a little bit northwest of Philadelphia. A lot of the ghost hunter shows at least try to do one here. Is that well known for it? And
I've always wanted to do it where you stay overnight in there.
Yeah, and they're very much big in Halloween as well. They have their own little like haunted kind of situation where like people are in their cells and stuff. It is pretty. Penhurst is pretty much a crazy kind of town when it comes to this kind of supernatural kind of stuff. But yeah, this was I'm glad this was in here because it really gives because let's be real, Eddie's currently the main suspect with a bullet. No one's really expecting anything else because he was the last person seen with her, and let's be real, she died with him. But props to Wayne. Is like, yeah, he's a weird kid, but like he means well. He would never hurt anyone. Like this is something that is way. This is like he even mentions like this is pure evil. Is I've only seen this once other time, and brings up Victor. And I'm really now curious of the connection between Victor and Vecna. Because is it the same person? No, because you can have situations where like residual energy of like spirits and stuff can go back to where they are. I'll get a little more into Vecna in a bit. Um, but like definitely, I am very intrigued how they're going to tie that in because I think they are tied together.
Okay.
And while this is happening, Fred hears that wonderful Glamfire clock ringing to him, and he steps out into the woods by the mobile homes, and he has an image of a grandfather clock sitting on top of casket. And then he sees all these people lined up as like a funeral,
And that was
where
creepy. Fuck.
they're like calling him a murderer and um no, it's like you did this, calling him out, and it's like, and these aren't like people, these are like distorted faces. You can see the kind of tendrils that Vecna has like on their side of their necks, and like the eyes that he has, like you can see he is the one creating this illusion for him that he is, let's be real, he's probably standing there by himself and just like living this at this moment. And yeah, he stumbles backwards. Uh, so he runs out into the road where he got into the accident, and sees the flaming wreckage and the victim crawling towards him, begging for his help. And then Fred stumbles backwards into a grave where the victim's corpse is waiting, covered in black widow spiders. And that was, I'm curious now what happened in this accident, because obviously he definitely killed someone. Was it covered up? Like obviously he never get in trouble to it, or was he like, I was like, oh, he's a kid, never, slapping the wrist kind of thing, like, or was it like, oh, this guy's in an unmarked grave and this is your punishment, screw you.
So
So
in that scene, if I remember correctly, I think there's only one car.
yes, there's only one car there.
So my guess was that he had somehow crashed and flipped the car, and he basically left whoever was in there to die, whether it be a friend or a family member. But it looks like he crashed the car, got out alive, and instead of staying to help, he just ran away.
Yeah, I think that I like that interpretation of that,
That's fair.
because it kind of, it does, again, that kind of the guilt, I guess you can say, that he has over it, and like again, he's being called a
Murderer.
murderer, and like the cut bleeding from his face. I thought was a really nice touch too. And Vecna is waiting for him, and he's like, "I want you," and I was like, "Ooh, that is, oh, I love it. I love it so much." Vecna's a fun villain. I'm happy now we finally have a villain who actually can speak,
Yes.
and that makes me that much more intrigued. So
Before we dive into more, I want to know what your thoughts on the grandfather clock and the spiders. Because
this is the second time we've seen the spiders too.
yep, in both in Chrissy's death and in
Mm-hmm.
Fred's death, we see the grandfather clock and spiders coming out of the clock or in the scene.
Yeah.
Do you have any guesses as to what, if there, even if there is any correlation, or if it's just random creepy shit they throw out there?
Well, to me, like the spiders, I'm not sure. That's one that it kind of like, to me, is Vector's motif. Like every horror monster villain has their own pastiche, where like Jason has drowning the victims with the water. Freddy has the nightmares and its claws. Oh, like it's like that kind of symbolism. And yeah, Vecna, to me, like the spiders, I haven't really. Of course, there's a reason behind it. I haven't really pinged it yet. Eerie as shit though, especially the one that coming to the clock with Chrissy. That was wild. The clock though, could be a lot of symbolism with that. Obviously at first it's like the time that they have left to live, to me, is like the impending doom. And from what I can tell, Vecna really does enjoy playing with his victims. where he's building up the torment, and I wouldn't say it's a right term or phrase, but like he's feeding on that guilt, that fear, that is he's harvesting pretty much, and the clock is the impending doom that's going to happen to them, and no, because like no, why wouldn't it be? It's literally time's ticking up for you, like it's going to happen. So that's how I see it on that. Anything else before I jump to the last party?
No, let's go for it.
All right. So my favorite of the group, Max, Dustin, Steve, and Robin. You made a comment before, Mitchell, that you love anything that has who was it again? Murray in it.
Yeah, and I'm the same exact way with Steve, Dustin, and Robin.
Same with Dustin.
Not to exclude Max, but usually Max isn't in this group.
Yeah.
But she's also more.
So that's why I'm not. Sorry, what was that?
She's also more on the serious side. She's not really one of the crack jokes like Dustin and Steve are.
Yeah.
Even though I really like her in this season, I just don't really. I don't really include Max in this group. I mean, you think Steve, you also think Robin because they're basically conjoined twins in this show so far, and then Dustin and Steve have a great rapport as well.
I would say Dustin. Everything centered around Dustin. I have been really enjoying out of all the seasons. I think that he is someone who's a real good
reliable
glue character for everybody. He brings out. I think he brings out a lot in every single character he's with. And it's really that's why he's out of all the kids, he's probably the most successful. Like he gets that rapport stuff as like an actor.
He's also the extrovert of the group. He's very outgoing and isn't afraid to speak his mind, and he talks to everybody. Whereas Will is very insulated, and Lucas has kind of distanced himself from the group now, and Mike's just kind of that awkward kid.
Chief Powell, that's his name. You did write it down, Tommy. It was just in the previous show doc. I'm bouncing around a little bit. Thank you for that. So,
you're welcome.
So we get Max after seeing the corpse, and shows up to Dustin. Is like, we need to talk, and talks about what's going on. Dustin's like, oh, why don't you tell the cops? And Max is like, there's a little more to this. I'm not so sure. And I was like, all right, no. It's like the lights are flickering, TV, like the power could be. But Max is definitely implying, I think something more is happening here. This is too many things to be a coincidence.
Yeah.
We need to get more. We need to see Eddie and find out what the hell's happened. And once Dustin realized that she's implying this, she's like, oh. And then his first move is go to Steve. And which I thought was great. So they link up with Steve and Robin. And I love how they just kind of take over. I'm like, hey, this is home base. Sucks to suck. We're taking over. And those two are like, what? And I love how, Dustin doesn't even care about Max at all when it comes to her feelings. Always like, hey, Max, just tell me what you told them. I'm doing work. Here you go. And so Max fills them in. They're trying to figure out how to get in touch with Eddie. So they're currently looking at the phone records, any of Eddie's friends. They get a lead on Reefer Rick, who is probably a local drug dealer. Steve's like, should we just go to the cops? No, they have information we can peel from them. No, obviously Max is like, hell no, we ain't doing this.
Well, it's also because Steve doesn't want to get involved. He wants to keep flirting with girls and trying to pick up girls.
That too. Which
is kind of what Dustin and Robin make fun of him for, because they're like, would you treat every customer equally, even if it was a guy? And he's like, yeah, of course. Meanwhile, in the background, we see a guy walk into the store, and Steve completely.
So hold on. I literally at that point when he walked, is like, is that Reefer Rick?
that would have been funny.
Because that literally went across my mind. I was like, if that was Reefer Rick, he's just kind of there in the store this whole time as they're hunting him down and looking through people's video
Honestly,
video catalogs.
Honestly, that's my new headcanon. That's not Reefer Rick.
Because it's very much like punk esque. Like he
Yeah,
had like
that would
the
have been perfect.
yeah. That was something I was like I could peg him to be a pothead with the punk attire. Um, and yeah, so we get this nice scene where like very much 80s flashbacks of like we're going through like we find out all these Ricks on their registry and like let's check these movies out what they've been renting like definitely
Huh, this goes to prove my point from earlier.
about
Go
Elaborate.
ahead, Connor. What movies were they renting?
do you have a list here? I do not. You didn't put the list up for me. I'm gonna pull the ones up from the top of my head that they were renting. So the first one was more family movies. I remember Dumbo being on there. Fun fact: Dumbo was one of my favorite movies when I was younger, which is weird as shit. Sad movie, so sad.
Not that weird. You were a
I was a
kid.
kid, but it was such a sad movie.
Yeah.
Like the elephant's mother dies in the very beginning, and he's always depressed about it. So Dumbo was one of them. I think the other one was. The second one was someone had Footloose and shit.
All right, I have a list.
Fast Time Richmond High was another one.
All right, I've got all the movies listed that were rented. Do you want me to read them out real quick?
Yes, sir.
So Rick Alderman rented Annie and Dumbo.
Annie, that's what
Rick
it was.
Rick Conroy rented Romancing the Stone and 16 Candles.
Yep. 16 Candles.
Rick Joyner did Footloose and Mask.
Mm-hmm.
Then Rick Kimbrough rented The Blue Lagoon and Splash. And then our infamous Reefer Rick did Cheech and Chong's next movie, Cheech and Chong's Nice Dreams, Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah. So they deduce that this is the Reefer Rick. Get his address. Go to the cabin. No one's answering. There's a light on in the boathouse, and then Dustin makes fun of Steve using an oar to poke around, and then in the boat itself, Eddie attacks Steve, and it like has him at knife point on the wall, and Dustin's like, "Calm down. We're here to help. Just trust us." And
oh no, sir, that was not a knife. That was a broken bottle.
That was a broken bottle. Yes, it kind of looked like a knife in the scene. Yeah, they should the bottle better off.
Same purpose.
Same purpose. Cut the throat. So Eddie's like, "Yeah, I can believe what's going to happen," and all four of them like, "Just try us." I love that. And Eddie's like, "Yeah, it's just recounts what happens," and all of them are like, "Yeah, Hawk," like, and they talk about the curse of Vecna. And I think it's a very apt way to put it, where this is a curse, where once you're targeted, it becomes because curses are, generally speaking, lifelong things once you obtain them, and it's hard to break. And as we could tell, the lifelong for here is 24 hours. And it kind of gives that impending doom of like, oh, once you're cursed, you're like kind of like the what's the one movie with the is it The Ring? Is it with the well and the lady coming on the TV?
Yeah.
Kind of that vibe to it, where it's like, oh, once you've been preyed upon, you're dead in this many hours.
7 days.
7 days. That's it. So yeah. So the upside down is revealed to Eddie. Yeah, and very good note where Eddie is being painted as a monster, but the only time he actually is quote unquote feral is when he is in shock for the night before and trying to protect himself, because he doesn't want to go to jail because he knows he didn't do anything, but like at the same time, it's also a wild situation that he's in.
Yeah,
so
we even see that in the last episode where we talked about it quite a bit, Connor, where we because of how he looks and what he's interested in terms of D&D, he's painted as this crazy
Yeah,
outcast of society, where he's really just a nice guy who just wants to have fun.
yeah, definitely. And one second. Here we go. I'm grabbing my wonderful D&D book because I feel like we're going to need it in a second. So I can spit off the top of my head. But yeah, so Eddie describes Chrissy's death, and then yeah, we get the wonderful figure of Vecna asking Fred to join him, and then in the real world we see him rise into the air in the street that he had the accident, and Dustin describes Chrissy's trance as Vecna's curse, and no, and the figure touches Fred, causing his bones to break the same way, eyes gone. So pretty much the same thing as Chrissy, and we get the view of Vecna awakening into a room with all these tendrils coming out from him, and definitely in the upside down. So he's in a large house with bats swarming around him, and then I want to point out there were some trinkets that are in that house that I thought were intriguing. So I'm curious if that's going to play a part.
What sort of trinkets were you admiring there, Connor?
I couldn't get a good glimpse of it. There was the one that was definitely sticking out was a little pink object in the bottom right. So I'm intrigued. I'm assuming that it has to play a part into something. No trophy. It could be trophies. It could be things that he's collecting. So it's something that I am intrigued that they're going deep in. And then Max makes a comment that there are some things that are worse than ghosts, referencing all of these wonderful victims. So, gentlemen's thoughts.
So this is definitely the filler episode, and this one screamed Nightmare on Elm Street to me because like that whole ending scene where you have like that almost like that tunnel vision of Vecna coming closer and closer to Fred, and the whole like come join me, and how he reaches his hand out towards his head. That's just like picture frame by frame of what Freddy Krueger would do, and I loved it. And the Duffer Brothers do a great job of their ending scenes where they kind of have like a side by side of like two different scenes happening at the same time and correlating together. They always do a really good job with that.
No,
So
yeah, I thought it was very well done. Again, like overall, like how they handled like the transitions in between these kind of scenes too, I thought was great. Where they having like the mix of like Nancy figuring out what's going on with Fred, and then the flip of them talking about talking to Eddie, like what he personally saw, and like in that illusion that because to him he just saw a scared girl just blanking out, and then boom, she's now being lifted up into the air.
yeah,
Okay, I'm trying to remember what I put up. Me and Tommy looked earlier in the book, and I'm pulling it right now. I'm currently opening up the wonderful Dungeons and Dragons guide from 5e, and because I do know what Vecna is, and they are called liches in the D&D world, which is a very very powerful dark wizard. And I liked how I'm very glad I used the word illusion when it came to how Vecna's dealing with these victims, because the fact that it is very much a dark mage kind of thing, where they're like warping their minds, giving a false sense of where they are, and by doing so, really kind of messes with their brains in that aspect. Like there's different things like it's like so one thing that liches are known for kind of it's called a phylactery. So kind of like the Voldemort has a stupid 7 things that you have to kill first. I don't
the
know what they're called.
Horcruxes, man.
Yeah. So
They're not,
Yeah.
imagine
they're not Sphinx, Connor.
I never read or watched any. I've seen some of the movies, but like I never really
Just
cared for it.
stop.
Don't care for the wizard world. Um,
What?
I don't care for it. Sorry.
Doesn't care for you.
I cool.
Disappointment, Connor. Disappointment.
So, but like in terms of like the phylacteries are very much one of them. So if you don't kill the phylactery, the lich will come back. And in order to make one, you have to have soul sacrifices. They're very much, generally speaking, necromantic. Which again, like and they also can resurrect. So like, they're very much a very powerful being and also very old. Like they are something where they could live for over hundreds of years, and they kind of have this knowledge. But also, like generally speaking, they are people who care about their own power and how they are very egotistical in that aspect, if that makes sense. But yeah, Vecna is a pretty damn cool villain in my opinion. And again, like that, like literally, like the very first lich ever in the D&D world. I don't want this ad, please, no, thank you.
I appreciate that. In our show here, we have multiple D&D characters. We have Dr. Connor, Professor Connor, and now D&D Dungeon Master Connor.
I'm a man of many hats. This is literally a quote that Vecna says in D&D, and I think it's very well putting. Evil is not the absence of good. It is not a choice. Evil is one of two forces in the cosmos, an agency locked in internal struggle against its antithesis. Only good and evil exist, and not even a hair's width of space that separates them. Ugh, so good. Oh,
he's just pure evil.
Pretty much. He was once a king at one point, and then he became a lich. Yeah, he is very much the he's depicted as a decrepit lich missing his left hand and left eye, as even Eddie mentioned that one during their fight against Vecna, that he was missing that. But yeah, it's a cool shit. I'm glad they're making him into the villain, because I'm really intrigued how they're going to portray. Because again, it's not really a 1-to-1 matchup between the villain and what they named him after. But I'm curious how they're going to portray our Vecna in this case. But he seems like a fun ass villain. I'm real excited.
Well, on that note, do you want to do ratings and wrap this episode up?
Let's do it. I'm giving it 8.5. That was good. Nothing like last week, but good. Like I had a lot of fun. I'm still invested, definitely, but I'm not as jonesing I was last week.
That's fair. I'm giving this one an 8.2. Definitely on the lower ends. Kind of the same reason. It wasn't as, I loved the first episode of the season. This one's more just a filler setting up for what's to come. Nothing mind-blowing or worth noting except for the whole Fred Benson murder with Vecna is definitely the highlight for me. But so my Mitchell guess here, I'm going to go lower. I'm going to say like a 7.5. Might be a little too low, but I'm feeling on the lower side.
Honestly, you're on the ballpark that I was thinking of. I was thinking he's going to get a 7.43.
Y'all are stupid.
What?
Because do you remember that song "Don't Trust Me" from back in the day?
No.
Yes.
Y'all remember that song?
I think so.
By a band called 303.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's the song I was thinking of.
And my grade's not going to be a 303. Trust me. We're not going down those depths again after season 2. But 808
So slightly.
This is what
Really?
I will give
So
this
you thought
one.
it was
So
slightly,
only
slightly worse than the premiere.
Okay.
yes, because I thought that there was just enough of the stuff with Murray, and I liked all the stuff that was going on with Max and Dustin and Steve and Robin and that group. And I thought that we stayed away from Noah Schnapp enough. So I'm still gonna get over an 8. So an 8.08. I wasn't as maybe I misrepresented my hatred for some of the side characters because they really didn't have too big of a role in this. Like,
That's fair
watered
enough.
down Glenn Powell. Watered down Glenn Powell only had like 2 or 3 lines.
Yeah.
Pretty low.
Same with Argyle, same with Will. I mean,
Participation.
that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
I
This
just thought you
is still good.
I thought you would detract more from like the roller rink scene personally.
No, because I still like the fact that 11 got her revenge, so to speak.
beating the girl's face with that stupid roller skate.
Yeah.
As revenge in some form or fashion. Alrighty then. If that's any last comments before we top it up, gentlemen.
That's all I got for tonight.
Yeah, same here.
Perfect. With that, please follow us on our social media. We got Stranger Nerds on Instagram, X, any other site that we probably are on. We're probably there. And for that, we bid you adieu. Have a good one. Bye-bye.